Yeah, so Ilhan Omar coming out in gross opposition to the El Salvador nation. She says, I led members of Congress in sending a letter to Secretary Blinken, I guess Secretary, urging action on threats to democracy in El Salvador. Really? She says the State Department must review its relationship with El Salvador and defend democratic values. The Salvadoran people deserve free and fair elections without fear of repression, she says. Now, I don't know if they are doing any current election repression in El Salvador. They might be. But here's the details that she probably should have known before she said that. El Salvador's democratically elected president, Nayib Bukele, won the 2019 election with a 54% majority. That's not just slightly over half wanted him. That's slightly over half of everyone wanted him, while everyone else was split between multiple other candidates. It's not just a plurality where most people win by less than half. They get 30% and they still win because it's a plurality. That's a majority. That's quite impressive. Now, maybe it was mostly two parties, but still impressive. Under his leadership, El Salvador's murder rate has fallen 93%, and he currently has a 91% approval rating among El Salvadorian citizens, which is very impressive. Now, those stats could be cooked. They very much could be, but seeing what he's been actually doing in El Salvador, I can at least believe that to some extent this is true. Yeah, so Datibul, the thing that you linked there about gangsters in El Salvador are terrified of Nayib Bukele. The country's president protects citizens from crime, but who will protect them from him? And then your response is, won't somebody think of the criminals? I see where you're coming from, but I talk often about an overcorrection. Now, the situation in El Salvador was utterly dire, and someone like Nayib here was necessary. Fine. Go for it. Do what you need to do, and he has, it seems, done a lot of that now. But how far will he go? I don't know. Maybe he'll be very responsible and very diligent and very selfless. And when El Salvador is pretty much fixed, he'll say, okay, enough of the extremism now, when it's genuinely not needed anymore. Enough of the extreme like man hunting now, enough of the authoritarianism, enough of the collectivism. We will now go to a system that works a little better, it's a bit more stable, something freer. If he does that, all props to him. And of course, I stress he should not do that until it is safe to do so. There is certainly a point where you could let off the cartels and then they will just roar back. I'm not recommending that. You'd be very careful of that. But if you get to the point that it is safe to do that, then I would expect a responsible leader to do so. To at least let them off somewhat, to carefully and responsibly return to a more stable system. But he might not do that. When you get situations like this, when someone comes in and just radically reorders a society, it is possible for them to go too far. It's possible to have an overcorrection. It might end up being even worse the other direction, as difficult as to believe as that is. I don't suspect that'll happen here, because it was really bad. And he has democratic support, so he probably is going to want to keep that, and he probably relies on it too. So it's probably not too bad, but it could go too far in the other direction. So the idea of who will protect them from him, we don't know. We genuinely have no idea how many alleged cartel members were falsely accused. I mean, as far as I know, his methods, specifically, were not through a precise legal system. It was more so like if you have any gang tattoos. Okay, fair enough. That'll capture most people who are in a gang. Fair enough. But there's going to be a few that had them that weren't, and a few that were in that didn't have them. So I don't know. There might already be large-scale injustice happening in El Salvador alongside the large-scale good work that he's doing, which I agree is necessary. So something to be careful of anyway.